Let me just check, see if anybody else has come in yet.
Okay.
Okay, this is the regular meeting for June 16th, 2020.
Hello.
Oh, Tiffany's here, great.
Chesha having problem logging in. He
Who is?
said Chesha.
Sure,
having
Sean?
problem. Yeah.
Okay. And Malachi, if somebody wants to text him. This is the regular meeting for June 16th, 2020, and is now in session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Garriga,
Here.
Halloran, Alderman Halloran,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Moranti,
Here.
Mizan, Alderman Mizan, Rosenthal,
Here.
I would, but
Fowler, Alderman Salah,
Yeah.
Trombley,
Here.
Walker, Alderman Walker, Wolf,
Here.
President DiPietro,
Here.
quorum present.
Okay. I need a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the May 4th and 19th.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm receiving messages from Alderman Walker and Mizan, and they're both having trouble getting on this link, and they're asking if someone can please email them with the link. I emailed it. I don't know if they're, I don't know, but can someone else please email it to them?
I send password and log in.
So we can do some of this as they try to get in. So can I have a motion to dispense with the minutes of the May 4th and 19th meetings and place them on file? Do I have an introduction? John? And a second? Ron? All in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Oh, here's Malachi. The motion carries. Okay, Malachi, you're now in? Oh, there he is, okay. So we still need to hear from Shersha. Okay, we have a bunch of communications. The study from the Benjamin Center, the revised fact sheet from the Galvin Foundation, and a dog control report for the month of April. Since I haven't been able, I don't see that dog control communication. Shaheen, could you post that, please? So we can all see it? No? Yes?
Just wanted to say that one more time.
I can do that, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, let's see. That was a call, patrol dates, interviews, and warnings for dog licenses. One was a city resident. Okay. So unlike our last dog warden, we have a report, a monthly report, I believe we're going to get. So can I have a motion to receive the communications and place them on file? Anyone? Shersha. Oh, Shersha's here. We got Shersha.
Duan.
Second is Dewan. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Excellent. Motion is carried.
President DiPietro, we need to go back and do committee reports, please.
Oh, sorry about that. You're correct. May I have a motion, a second to place committee reports on file? An introduction.
Okay.
Malachi.
I thought we did. No?
What?
No, yeah.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion. Someone say something?
No, it's people who don't mute their phone at all or their devices during these things just make this a total nightmare. So if you're not speaking, anyone listening, audience member or alderperson, mute your device and please speak.
So that motion carries. We're gonna have a brief. Michael Chimides, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Michael, you're gonna give us a quick rundown on some ADA developments?
Yes, I think it was last month's formal meeting. You you authorized the mayor to sign a contract with the ADA architect. That ADA architect is pending, requires the review of the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice, to my mind, changed the sort of requirements of what they are looking for. And so we need to make some changes to how we're approaching the ADA architect. They have said that we need to distinguish between an architect who is giving design solutions and making recommendations versus an architect that is just giving pure objective measurements of faults. And so what they want us to do is hire two separate architects in essence. So whenever they want us to have an architect that has faults, they would just do measurements. They would never tell us how to solve something. They would just, for the example of a sidewalk, they would measure all the sidewalks, give us measurements. Then we would make a solution however we do it. And then they would come back and give us the measurements again and tell us whether or not those measurements are accurate. And that's how every single change would go forward. It's frustrating because it's going to increase costs because it means that we have to, whenever we employ an architect to help us solve something, we need a separate architect who will do solutions. And it's just going to add sort of another layer to the design process. But ultimately, we did sign a contract requiring the DOJ has veto power, and that's sort of what they're insisting at this point. So I don't think it's going to be astronomical, but it means that we're going to have to sort of revisit the ADA architect process. And so I wanted to keep you posted since you had addressed that last month.
What's that price look like?
Sorry, say that again.
Saying a price range with that.
I guess I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I think it's the bigger cost is going to be the design solutions as opposed to the objective measurements of faults. So I would predict that it'll end up being thousands of dollars extra, which in the grand scheme of all the things that we need to do for ADA wise is not a, I don't think that's going to make or break the entire project, but in a situation where budget is really tight and we are hoping to make rapid changes, it's going to slow down things and add cost. But we'll have to kind of see as it goes. And again, the council will still be involved with approving any sort of contract going forward. So our intention is to keep Dirtworks as our sort of creative design solution oriented architect, and then issue an RFP for what we're calling like an inspector style architect who just does the measurements and that's it.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay, moving on. Shaheen, can you post the bills, please? There we go. Okay, let's look what we got here. Thank you, Shaheen. Any questions from council members?
What's UHY LLC?
UHY LLC.
Hmm.
That's actually the new name for the accountant.
Hmm.
It used to be Patkinson, et cetera.
Patterson, Koski, and Howe and Bucci.
Right, and now they're UHY.
Yep.
Can I ask what is network adjusters?
Network adjusters. Tracy, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, that's the insurance deductible. You'll see a resolution later on in the evening that will transfer the money to pay that settlement. That is the deductible that the city has to pay.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. Can I have a motion to pay the bills? Someone? Anyone?
Eileen.
Eileen? And can I have a second, please?
I second Malachi.
Malachi. Tracy, could you please call the roll for a vote?
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranci,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Jane? Where is she?
On mute, probably.
Here she is.
As should you too, Eileen.
Hey, hey. No, because it's too hard to get back on.
Yeah, but it makes a sound every time you move your phone around. It's really, I have so much respect for you, but this is the most ongoing problem that we have in these meetings.
Jane Trombley, oh, there you are.
Yeah,
Okay, there you are. Vote, please.
aye, sorry.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. What was that? The first resolution is appointing Commissioner of Deeds. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranci,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you. The next resolution designates the Register Star as the city's official newspaper. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Tracy?
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranci,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The third resolution transfers funds from the legal advisor personal services account to the legal advisor's fees account. Roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranci,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye. Okay,
Carried.
now the new resolutions. As we heard at the last meeting, but there wasn't a resolution ready for the contract with Hudson Paddles. Can I have an introduction and a second, please?
I'll introduce Jane.
Jane and,
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Introduce.
Calvin, sorry.
Jane and-
Okay.
can I have a roll call vote, please?
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Calvin,
Thank you. Alderman Griega,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
aye.
Carried.
The next resolution authorizes the mayor to issue an expanded request for expression of interest in the Dunn Warehouse and adjoining parcels. We talked about this last meeting as well. And as I pointed out to Eileen and a couple others, there are built-in restrictions based on the zoning district it's in. So that would come into play as well to how we would develop this property. Can I have an introduction and a second, please?
Introduce.
Dewan and Jane?
Yeah.
Tracy, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Griega,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution, pretty simple one. It's appointing Shannon Dos Megan to the Conservation Advisory Council. At the recommendation of the council and us. She has a phenomenal resume. Can I have an introduction in a second?
Jane will introduce.
Jane, and a second, please?
Calvin, I'll second.
Thank you. A roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Alderman Griega,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
Next resolution, one of those resolutions we always like, I guess. It's accepting a $50 donation on behalf of the fire department from Lucio Pozzi and his Orfeo LLC. Can I have an introduction in a second, please?
Dewan.
Dewan, second.
Jane.
Tracy, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Griega,
Aye.
Halloran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Farrar,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Oh.
Sorry.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution involves the tourism board is going to be using much as other groups have used the Columbia Economic Development Corporation to help administer their program, which is currently accepting applications for various short-term grants. This, of course, will come out of their money, not out of the general fund. Can I have unless there's any comment, can I have an introduction and a second, please?
Eileen, I'll introduce.
Second?
Jane will introduce, or second.
Okay, thank you, Jane. A roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halleran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
I should also point out, by the way, one of the things CEDC is offering to do, there's a, some of these grants are going to be reimbursable. But what CEDC is going to do is provide upfront money for the, for those who can afford to put out money for these various grants. So it's a really great thing. The next resolution, please. This is transfers within the water and cemetery budgets. Can I have an introduction and a second, please?
Walker.
Luan.
Dewan,
Calvin, I'll second.
Calvin. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Tracy?
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halleran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
Okay, the next one. Oh, boy. This is a transfer of funds to pay the city's deductible related to an insurance settlement. So I guess it was the first claim against,
Network adjustment, right?
what's that?
No, this is the one on a billing.
I'm not sure I understand what you said.
No, that's all right.
Okay. But I guess since if this was the first claim, this is probably the 5,000 deductible you have to pay. Can I have an introduction and a second, please?
Was this discussed at finance?
No. It's an adjustment within, it's already gone to the Board of Estimate.
So I'll introduce Tom.
Yes. Jane, second, please. Someone, second?
I'll second this, Eileen.
Eileen. So can I have a roll call vote, please, Tracy?
Alderman Garriga,
Aye.
Halleran,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Rosenthal,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Trombley,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
Now, the next one we talked about last week. This is a resolution settling the assessments. Carrie Haddad, Jackson Haddad, and Henry Haddad. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, wait. 5 properties. Can I have an introduction and a second, please?
Jane will introduce.
And a second, please.
Calvin, I'll second.
Now, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Garriga.
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't at the informal, so I didn't have a chance to attend the executive session portion.
Halloran.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Moranci.
Aye.
Nissan.
Aye.
Rosenthal.
Aye.
Farrar.
Aye.
Trombley.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
Next resolution is the other assessment we talked about last week for Michael and Virginia Howard. Can I have an introduction, please? Someone? Anyone?
Luan.
Dewan? Can I have a second, please?
I have a question.
Yes, Tiffany?
Was this also discussed in the executive session?
Yes, it was. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Jane.
Okay, thank you, Jane. A roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Alderman Garriga.
I abstain for the same reason I stated for the prior resolution.
Halloran.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Moranci.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Rosenthal.
Aye.
Farrar.
Aye.
Trombley.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carries.
And with that, we are done with our resolutions. Remember, everyone, if you introduced or second a resolution, please stop by City Hall tomorrow to sign those resolutions. Next up, for purposes of putting on our desks, we have the proposed local law introductory number E of 2020, amending the city code to regulate the keeping and raising of chickens. This is, excuse me, this has gone through the legal committee. Certainly, as you know, to introduce and second it is by no means the end of this. It needs to go through quite a bit of further discussion and eventually hearings. But we can discuss it before we even introduce it.
This is Eileen. I guess for the legal committee, did it come out of, I think you said it came out of legal
Yes, it did.
committee.
I did.
Is it meant to cover the whole city? Folks around here that heard about it remembered it from probably 10 years ago, and it wasn't a, go ahead.
It was about 6 years ago, because I
Oh,
remember.
all right. Yep. Well, not a lot of enthusiasm so far around here. So I would imagine maybe some neighborhood input will be persuasive with the planning commission.
Let me just answer your question, Eileen. As drafted, the chickens are allowed in every district, and everyone who wants to do one would be required to get a conditional use permit from the planning board.
Wow. Okay, good.
Obviously, you know, you can change any of that you want. This is just up for the discussion.
Yep, thank you, Jeff.
Jane, you're sorry, Jane has her hand up. Hold on. You're next, Dominic.
Okay, thanks, Tom. We discussed this in the winter, early spring, and it was before the pandemic, changed everybody's lives and changed the economics of Hudson and lots of upheaval in our civic lives and probably in our personal lives. I just want to go on record as saying that with those changes and with an enhanced understanding of the proximity of animal to human disease transmission, particularly with birds, I think this is something I certainly personally understand much better than I did before, when I thought this was kind of a whimsical, cool idea. And I see that it has implications that I didn't appreciate early on. And I think it's an overall detriment to our quality of life. I also, economics point of view, when we're looking at scaling back our city services across the board to the tune of at least 10%, that to further burden code enforcement with something like this, it's just, I don't think it's the right use of our resources. So those are my points. If I were voting this minute, I would have to vote against it, but we'll see. We're not up for vote, I realize that.
Dominic, thank you, Jane. Dominic?
So I looked through it. So it said that they're basically private property. They can't sell them and everything. But I didn't see anything about them using it for consumption, for slaughter, for their own personal use. Is that something they could do if they choose?
Yes, there was a discussion at the committee on this, and originally it had a prohibition on slaughtering. And I think the committee discussed that it was the point that since there's a limit on the number of chickens anyway, it's not that somebody's going to likely turn their backyard into a slaughterhouse. And so you have to figure out a way to dispose of the chicken. And so, on-site slaughtering is permitted under the law.
So just because it's not in there doesn't mean they can't do it, Ben. Why, since there was prohibition, why wasn't it kept in there just to prevent that from happening? Because we're going to open up a door saying, well, it's not in there. So just because somebody has 5 chickens today doesn't mean that they could get rid of 3 tomorrow and then get 3 more the next day. So I'm just wondering why the slaughter prohibition wasn't kept in there.
Well, I think the intention was to allow people, because they only have a few chickens, to occasionally slaughter them. I think what you're envisioning is somehow somebody slaughtering their flock and getting in a new flock of mature chickens and slaughtering them again in a short period of time. They're not allowed to sell the meat, so I'm not sure I don't know how to address that concern, Dominic.
Well, I'm just saying for self-consumption, but I would be happier just because of the nature of the protection of the animals, even though it's not in there, that it would be in there just to eliminate that opportunity of somebody doing it. That's all. Thank you.
Tiffany, do you have your hand up for this?
I do. And we decided on the committee to have that there because, people do eat chicken for protein. It's not just about eggs. And not everyone can afford going to the supermarket, especially during this period time of COVID, where we don't know when it's going to end. And this will give people the opportunity to have organic chicken, so to speak, at their home, same way that people grow vegetables. Now they can have their protein meat along with. So we supported that, and I agree with the attorney. That's the decision that the committee made. And I hope that the council, sees the need for it, the want for it, and not just the comments of the certain individuals who are against it, but just look at the broader aspect of it. It's needed.
Thank you, Tiffany. Eileen, you have your hand up?
Yes, there's two paragraphs in this that talk about the chickens being food and a food desert. So I don't know how that gets accomplished, how it serves that purpose without some provision for butchering.
Because people could collect eggs from their chickens, and that serves to provide some source
Yep.
of protein. So, I mean, this is we're talking about 5 birds. It's not large flocks here. Historically, people have raised animals probably within the limits of Hudson. It's not that outrageous. Other communities do this. It's a very small gesture toward localism and local food. If you choose to do it, I think the process in terms of going in front of the planning board for a conditional use permit to do in the first place is pretty served as a solid regulation or regulatory step. So I really, I think this is it's a fairly minor thing to do here. So I don't think this is a sky is falling type of law.
Well, I don't think it's sky is falling either, but I agree with Jane. I mean, right now there's a lot of sensitivity to things that can happen with animals that are outside of the normal process. And this thing didn't fly 6 years ago.
Okay, fine. I'm less. Obviously, the idea of an animal-borne disease is, something to consider. But of course, this is another thing that we've lived with as humans forever. So, of course, the pandemic puts a new light in things. But I think, the benefits of allowing people to raise small amounts of chickens and get eggs from them, and what that does in terms of far outweighs the risk of Hudson becoming ground zero for the next epidemic.
I agree with that. And I think that to draw a connection between the pandemic or the the animal-borne excuse me, aspect of COVID-19 and diseases potentially produced in chickens it doesn't really, it seems basically almost like a superstitious connection to me, and not really something that should stand in the way.
Well, let's stop there and just get an introduction in a second first.
For Shersha.
Shersha.
I want to talk about this part.
Okay, let's do this, and then we can do that. You want to introduce it?
I want to speak about it then.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, that's only for chicken or bird also?
For what also?
Birds, other birds like, people raise quails and stuff.
I think it's just chickens.
Just chickens.
Just chickens. Okay. Well, without we raising the chicken in city of Hudson, virus already in the Hudson, so I don't think so those chicken can bring the virus. Number one, I see in Greenport a lot of people raising the chicken in their backyard, and they got coops and stuff. So it's really helping the residents to get their eggs and meats and stuff. So I believe it's very helpful for the people in the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, can we get an introduction in a second?
I'm introducing Shersha.
Okay, thank you, Shersha. Second?
Second.
Who was that? One. Okay. Now, you can talk about it more, or we can actually do a motion to put it on your desks. Just a formality at this point. Is there more conversation now, or there'll be plenty more time to talk about it?
I have a question. I'll just pop in.
Okay.
Yeah, can I say it?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. I saw it's a fried chicken, not rooster. Why is not rooster allowed? I'm just wondering.
I think that's about sound
Okay.
concerns, roosters crowing.
Okay.
So I need another motion, introduction, and a second.
Calvin, I'll introduce.
Calvin, and who's going to second that?
Luan,
Go on. Okay, so it's now on our desk for future discussion. We could talk about it more now if you'd like, but. Okay, so,
Chickens.
I'm sorry, Tiffany?
Bring on the chicken.
Let's see. Okay, new business. Since, well, that was quick, 40 minutes in. One thing I want to say is that we will be voting in July on the Galvin proposal. So rather than overload this meeting, the informal of July will be the best chance for the public to comment on the Galvin proposal. There's yet again another revised pro forma, so we want to get that out there and have a discussion so that at the July formal meeting, we will definitely be voting on the Galvin proposal. With that, I open up the meeting to the council for any new business.
I think it's a little, of course, we're making great progress here, but it's a little premature to say when we're definitely going to vote on something.
Yeah, yeah.
Lots of good progress is being made.
I thought you were in favor of that, John.
I am, but I'm saying there's lots of good, we should.
But we need to vote sooner than later.
Of course. But,
Why sooner than later? Well, I don't understand the rush.
Well, because the Galvin Foundation would like to move forward. The city would like to move forward. There's a timeline for the project. All kinds of it. This is more than a month to further look into the proposal.
Mhm.
I mean,
I have to agree with John. I mean, we have to vote on things every month, but to say that it just, and maybe you didn't mean it this way, Tom, but it just sounds like you're forcing us. Like you're going to vote on this next month, and it just doesn't sound right because we know our rights as council members.
Of course, but you're right. I'm not forcing anything. I thought a number of you were in agreement with.
I think you're not understanding what's going on here. We're supporting the idea, Tom, but the idea is, also working and continually pushing to make sure that we could get a full, as much of a buy-in as we can from the council.
Exactly.
The people are supporting it here, so.
Okay. I sit corrected. I would like to have a vote on it in July.
That's a better way of putting it.
thank you.
There you go.
Eileen, do you have
Progress.
Yes, and supporting the need to not feel rushed with this. The whole idea of the parking for all of those additional units up in that area. I had said to Dan on one of the calls about this, couldn't they offer that on the property that is on the east side of 7th Street? And the answer was no, because Galvion has plans to build something else over there. So I think there ought to be a lot of discussion about parking and the impact on 7th Street and that area from the additional units.
Well, Dan is here tonight. Do you want to just talk about it more tonight, or would you rather wait till the informal of next month?
I'd rather wait for the informal of next month.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a special meeting before the informal.
I don't know if that's necessary, but.
Okay, well, that's a possibility. We actually have some special meetings scheduled to help the tourism board move faster. But let me talk to the mayor and Dan Kent and John, who's been doing a lot of work on this, and we'll figure out something between now and next month. Jane.
Thanks.
Unmute yourself, Jane.
Right. Raise your hand is another thing to unmute. before either the special meeting or we meet again next month, might I ask the people, the older people who represent the wards that would be the most affected by this building to either informally survey their constituents as to their thoughts on this and how it might impact their quality of life, the parking, everything. I don't have a good sense of it because I'm not close to it physically, but some of you are. So maybe a Google survey or informal considerations. I think I'd really like to know how residents in that neighborhood feel about this. So I think that would be helpful as we form a decision. So I ask that you do that.
By the way, a slight mistake. I should have asked Calvin to go into the waiting room if we're going to talk about this project. Sorry, Calvin.
I'd like to add too that,
Oh, hold on a second. Shaheem, could you put Calvin in the waiting room? Hi, Calvin. Shaheem, are you there? Okay. Go ahead, John.
I'd like to add that my conversations with Dan have been great, and there's a lot of good positive progress here. So it's not a question of hitting, stopping this. It's just a question of making sure that every council person's input is addressed. And Dan's been incredibly responsive and a good person to work with on this. So all my interactions have been positive. So this is not a question about shutting anything down. It's just really doing our work here.
Okay. With that, we'll move that to July conversation in the informal or perhaps a special meeting. Any other new business from council members they'd like to raise? So we can let Calvin back in. That was quick. Trisha, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I did talk about that before also about the gravel truck. So if it is council possible to recommendation to the planning board to about the Colorado's plan, then we can get a lot of help to get away their truck from the street.
Well, you're certainly able to write to the planning board if you want. I don't think for us as a council to write to them is appropriate at this stage. They're a separate city entity doing their job. I don't think it's our job to second guess them at this point.
I mean, that plan is in the planning board for a while.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, they push away every time I call last time. They don't have the last meeting agenda. So I don't know when it's going to be their agenda.
Well, I think there's another route we could take, pardon the truck pun here. If we want to do something about truck traffic broadly in the city, we could consider doing weight limits as a way to establish how we feel about truck traffic that's not on the truck route. So in terms of letting the planning board do their job, I think we should, and try not to overly pressure them in certain ways, but we could definitely address traffic and trucks here because that's our purview.
Let me
Separate.
if I just point something out to everyone in the charter. You certainly, obviously as individual alder persons, you have a right to comment to the planning board. Certainly the council as a whole can make their views known. You've got a specific provision in the charter, section 25-8 regarding the creation of the planning board, where you can ask them to come before you and give you a report and discuss anything that they have pending, either a specific case or a broader issue. Tom's right, of course, you can't dictate to them how to vote or what to do or take an action, but you certainly have the authority to ask them what's going on with the project and express your views on it. The issue of creating weight limits, dealing with the trucks that deal with this issue will not solve that problem. If that could do it, it doesn't solve the problem of Colarusso, because until they get an alternate route and get the causeway through, you can't put on any kind of a weight limit that would bar their access to the waterfront. That would be a
I think
taking.
I think that's a debatable point, and I think if we want to discuss.
That's not debatable. I've had cases like that. That's a fairly straightforward thing.
I don't know. Let's.
Hey, let me just finish, John.
Not-
The other point of that is, remember, is that the council, you've already, your predecessors, of course, but in 2011, you passed the law that established the district and made a finding at the time under seeker that it was a matter of environmental justice to move that project forward, or eventually, when things happen, circumstances happened, to get the trucks off of Columbia Street and put them on the causeway. So you're up, you would have to change essentially that law and that finding to make that determination.
I think we could, this is open for debate. And first of all, they have ingress egress access there. I don't know how you want to, or the council of the city wants to define what a taking is in this case, but they bought the property under certain considerations. They have a dedicated ingress egress over a private route. And if we're talking about establishing weight limits on local city streets that are already heavily burdened by their truck traffic, I think there's a strong argument here that we could make if we try to establish a bit of control here that is not a taking. I mean, efficiency to profit is, in my opinion, wouldn't be an argument that they could make. And I think the council could debate this. I think this is open for debate.
Well,
I also just want to put out there that, as far as I understand it, there has been no guarantee from Colorusso that they will not use the streets for truck traffic.
No, they could use the truck. They could use the truck route because we can't control that.
Now, again, they actually have agreed to do that, and there would be a condition that the planning board could put on that would require all of the trucks going to their property would have to use the haul road. And with that, it would be a legal condition that can be, they don't even have to agree to it, it can be imposed, but they have not registered any objection to that. And then, you also, and to John's point, is could you study this and could you determine to change it and put a weight limit on that as an alternative? As a legal process, you could start that to do it, but it's going to be subject to seeker, and you're going to have to evaluate the environmental impacts associated with doing that and going through that whole process. In the meantime, you've got a pending application that's been sitting for a long time in the planning board, and that one should go forward, which, if it was granted, would alleviate all the problems by getting all of the trucks out of the center of the city.
Right. I mean, without weighing in on their process, I'm simply saying if we did that route, which you're describing, I think there's plenty of public health issues already, and also infrastructure degradation that's probably coming from the concession of allowing the current truck volume beyond in the west side of the city that we could use to argue, I think, an environmental impact problem currently with what they're doing. So it's not to say no one's denying them access to their property, which they will still have. So I think just trying to separate the two problems, their permitting process goes ahead while we're trying to deal with another problem, which is separate, which is the overburdened truck traffic by establishing weight limits. So I do think if the council considers this worthwhile, we should debate it and start this process.
Okay, with that in mind, Shah,
Yes.
I will write to the chair of the planning board and ask them if they would like to present to the council and when that would be convenient, and to find out what their timeline is. Do they see an end to the process?
And I do think we're talking about two separate issues here, even though there's, of course, they sort of inform on each other, but they're separate points.
Dominic wanted to speak.
Thank you. Is there a way to also get some kind of update or status on the traffic survey that was supposed to be conducted, so we can also use that as some kind of information?
Sure. Why don't council members send me some of the questions that we might want to answer so that they can be prepared, although I think they'd probably be prepared even if even if we didn't send them ahead of time. But yes, I don't see why not. I'll make a note of that. You
Thank
want to know about their traffic study? Okay, moving along. Any other council members have issues they'd like to, new business they'd like to bring up? Can I see everybody? Let's see. Jane, Malachi, Calvin, John, Dewan, Rebecca. Okay, now we open to the public. If you know how to raise your hand on the on the chat section, please do that and we will unmute you. Or if I can see your visual, if you want to raise your hand, there's not too many visitors with the visual.
I'm sorry, this is Ron Kopnicki.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I don't see any mechanism for raising my hand, so I just unmuted myself.
Okay, go ahead.
What I want to ask is, I had raised the question of public comment on the Galvan proposal. Are we now to understand that we will be able to make comment at the next informal meeting?
Either the next informal or a special meeting just for comments.
Okay. I would also like to raise another question myself having to do with the lack of transparency of the DRI committee. I'm just raising this issue. Other people have brought this up on social media. I'd particularly like to focus on the insistence on the part of the DRI committee in their published minutes that the committee, which does not define a quorum, is not subject to the open meetings law. And I would like to raise the question of when and why the DRI committee came to this determination. I'd like to point out that according to, at least according to gossips of Rivertown, that the former DRI/LP committee, the larger body, which finished its deliberations at the beginning of March 2018, according to Ms. Gina Salvino, was subject to the open meetings law. I think the current DRI committee should define a quorum, make itself subject to the open meetings law, and should follow the example of various other public bodies, including the council itself, the Hudson Public Development Corporation, the Tourism Board, and so forth, and set up arrangements to, either through Zoom or some other platform, to make the meetings accessible to the public for monitoring and comment. That's all I wanted to say at this point. I have future questions. I have further questions about how the current DRI committee was originally set up, but I'll save them for later. But that is what I want to say for now. And now Matt McGee would also like to make a comment.
Well, hold on a second. Let me answer some of your questions, Ron.
Sure.
I agree with you that the DRI, up until the pandemic, until the shutdown, were all open meetings. And I don't really understand why we've suddenly closed them to the public. But I will raise that tomorrow because there is one tomorrow.
Right, and this is another point is, of course, the meeting tomorrow is not on the city calendar.
No, it's not.
The DRI committee has been holding meetings for the last several months, which are either not listed on the calendar or listed on the calendar as canceled. And this is another issue in terms of transparency. The one aspect of my question is, why is this not defining a quorum being used as a pretext for exemption from the open meetings law? Why would the committee not want to define a quorum? As far as I can tell, under the understanding of, for example, something like Robert's rules, where a quorum would be a bare majority, the DRI committee has been having quorums at its meeting. So this is a mystery to me.
Quick, Jeff, do you have any opinion about that? Unmute yourself. Jeff?
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's my understanding is because the DRI committee cannot actually take any action and commit any city. It's not commit the city to any action. It's not necessarily subject to the open meetings law.
But they specifically state that they are not subject because they do not define a quorum. Why would they not want to define a quorum?
Well, they don't need to have a quorum because they don't actually vote as a group to take an action. Maybe they just work by consensus. They're not.
Well, that seems a little, work by.
Well, my understanding is that they're an advisory committee that works together and they've set up their rules. I mean, I don't know.
Well, see, then we get back to my original question of when and where did they set up their rules and how and where is this in writing?
That I don't know. We'd have to look at
Okay.
it.
Well, this is just one more thing. This is a committee that has a great responsibility, administrative grant, and some people have spoken of its actions as possibly being transformative for Hudson. And given that, they need to be a lot more transparent and accountable to the public. Now, Matt would like to say something.
I actually believe that unless they have a meeting where they determine that they do not want to have a quorum, that they automatically have one. And I don't know how you can avoid that. And I also believe that if you're having a meeting and you have rules, you're supposed to post them so that people know what they are.
Okay, I will bring this up tomorrow. I think Cheryl Roberts joined us. Cheryl, if you're there, there's a question about, are you?
I wouldn't throw her under the bus on this. She's not prepared to deal with it. Why don't we look at the question and get back to you on it?
Yes.
Thanks. I would like to see get some information about this.
Got it.
I'm not the only one, because as you may have seen on social media, there were once the DRI started dealing with the waterfront, which is a very fraught issue, the Dunn warehouse, people began getting more interested in transparency and lack of transparency.
Well, as you saw, I mean, I'm not defending what the committee does, but as you saw, even with the Dunn warehouse, the most recent development had to go before the council. It wasn't like, something done in the dark. Okay, but we'll definitely look into it for you. I got a bunch of people with their hands up. I'm going to take them in order.
I'm going to mute myself.
Well, thank you. Verity Smith is up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to return to the question of the Hall Road just quickly, because Alderman Rosenthal said that he wanted to distinguish between two different points, but then you had to shift away to ask Dominic, his point, and we never went back. So I'm very curious as to what Alderman Rosenthal was, I just want to know what are the two things he was trying to distinguish between?
Because I think there's a question of the overall truck dilemma in the city, which is considerable beyond the Colarusso issue. And then there's the Colarusso issue at the waterfront and our relationship legally because of the permit process that we have to be delicate about. But then what we could do in terms of determining what we want for weight limits on our city streets and the concessions that we give to private operators here. And I think I think that those are two separate points. The company has a private access to their property at the waterfront, which is theirs, and they have ingress and egress rights already in our code over the current
right
Causeway Road. So I'm trying to distinguish the 2 points because even once this is solved, and hopefully it's solved for the benefit of everybody, we're still going to have a truck problem here in Hudson that's considerable. So that's why I'm trying to parse the 2 points here.
So, okay, so can you just explicate just a little bit more, like this next move, which, now Tom has said maybe he will write and ask them to maybe come before you, et cetera. How do you see these two separate things coming, which one does it weigh on, or both? How?
I mean, I think we'd have to
How are you going to ask them to present? What are you asking them to present?
I think we should actually vote if we even want to do that. I think the fact that Alderman Mizan wants to do it, I respect, but I think the full council should vote if we want to actually have the planning board come here and give a presentation of what they're doing. It's a fraud issue right now.
Of course.
So,
okay, thank you. That's helpful. It's a very tricky issue, so I just wanted to understand what you meant when you were trying to parse the two separate threads of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Barry.
There are other people waiting to ask questions, but at John's suggestion, we will take a quick vote. to see if people
Whoa,
want.
whoa, 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 whoa. Let's just, well, I'm not suggesting we do that now.
Oh,
but-
okay. I thought you
but I
were.
don't think, I mean, if Alderman Mizan wants to write the planning board, that's fine. But I think if we're,
Okay. I thought
unless
you
you want
were.
to make a motion to do, there's a,
Okay.
I was not, it's just a slight severity.
There's a
Tom, I
lot-
thought,
I was giving my opinion.
there's a lot of hands up, so we're gonna move along. Rebecca, you wanted to say something?
I do, thank you. I wanted to bring forward some conversations from the Finance Committee meeting that just happened about the budget for the police department. And just to, well, say for one thing that I had many, as I'm sure all of you did, I heard from many constituents with concerns about the size of the budget for the police department with relative to the entire city budget. And also that there were many appreciative responses to the mayor's executive order. There is a request that we consider reducing the budget by 20%, not 10%, which I think is probably more in line with what actually others, in terms of the math that that correlates size of population to number of police officers, that would probably make more sense. And also a concern was expressed that the 10% or that the total amount of the budget, the actual budget, not the 3 million plus that was initially reported, be whatever the percentage that's going to be reduced by apply to, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Next in line is Tiffany.
Yes, thank you. I also agree with Rebecca, and I've been speaking to a lot of constituents and non-constituents who also would like to see that budget reduced down to 20%. I have several questions here because, everything that is going on in this country and that has been going on for generations. And this is a big discussion. There's a lot of issues going on. And, what the mayor did today, was very big of him and is definitely what's needed, but 20% is going to make it even better. I haven't heard anything from any board of supervisors in the aspects of where they serve with the mental health and the social service aspect of it. And more importantly, I want to know how do they feel about the Black Lives Matter movement and what's going on and what role are they playing?
Tiffany, as you recall at the finance meeting, I also wonder, what are they doing about their police budget, given that we contribute to that budget as members of the county? In any case.
I do remember that, but I would like to hear from the supervisors, and I know some of them or one of them are on this Zoom call.
Would you like to speak, Eileen? Linda? Gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, there was I have been speaking on the public safety committees consistently about accountability, transparency in the county. The county had a public safety meeting today, and I asked some very difficult questions, and I'm hoping that there will be some follow-up, and on the heels of what Hudson has done, that we will get some collaboration and participation. I've asked that we stop the militarization of the sheriff's office. I've asked that we cut the correction officers because there's only 34 people in the jail. And I've been persistent and challenging and questioning and we are in the minority, and this is where it becomes a battle to try to get the county to come to the realization that they too have to wake up and get into in step with what's happening in the nation and really follow what Hudson is doing. I think the mayor's done a great job. So I'm working hard to change. but it requires some more effort from the citizens of Hudson and the county to reach out to their supervisors and chime in and try to divert and change the funding and move some of it to mental health. We have a huge homeless issue. We have a lot of issues that policing and sheriffs don't really can't handle, don't belong there, and we can change the funding cycle, and now's the chance. I think the governor has also chimed in on this. We have a lot of work to do by 2021.
Thank
While
you.
I'm talking, I want to just go back to Hall Road. I want to remind the council that this is a justice issue. Many of the people who live on the route where these trucks travel are in low-income housing, subsidized housing, and put up with the trucks daily. Taking the trucks off of the city streets, and these are the Colarusso trucks I'm talking about. We've waited a long time to get this issue settled, and I think it's time to demand that the planning board make a decision.
And
Thanks.
thank you, Linda. I had one more thing to say, Tom. You know, in light of what's going on, and I agree with what the mayor has done, but we can push it to 20%. I would hope and to see that the police committee meeting is not canceled this month, because we have a lot of issues and discussions, serious discussions, and a lot of work to do.
Oh, it won't be canceled.
Thank you.
Come on.
No, it's not gonna be canceled.
Yeah. Look, there are 3 people in line. One of them is not a council member, but I'm going to let him go first because he's been in line for a while. Steve Dunn, would you like to speak? You're still there. Hello? Steve Dunn? Oh, there he is.
Sorry, can you hear me?
There you go.
I apologize.
All right.
One thing that I think deserves investigation on the proposed pilot is a better understanding of the tax law and that maybe Mr. Kent can help or somebody else. But in the consultant's report, what leapt out at me was the comment that after 30 years, private investment will be satisfied, and thereafter, the entity that owns pilot property could then apply and probably obtain a total tax exemption. And then it made the statement that therefore it would be in the best interest of the city if it went forward with this project to extend the pilot to 50 years. And there's $2 or $3 or $4 million in present value terms associated with extending the pilot from 30 years to 50 years. So as part of the negotiation with the Galvin Foundation on this, as to what's needed for the project to go forward, assuming the council wants it to go forward, it sounds like they probably do, it'd be good to fully understand that. And I'll struggle myself to understand it, but I suspect Mr. Kent and the advisors for Galvin thoroughly understand it. So I know you don't want to talk about the pilot at this meeting, but this is something that I think would assist the council in making a decision that's in the best interest of the city financially. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Jane has her hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of things. Linda, number one, I want to say thank you to you for taking this cause forward on the whole police sheriff's issue for the county, because I think it's great that Hudson is doing what it's doing, but it's a piece of the larger puzzle, and I appreciate the work that you're in the supervisor role. Rebecca, I wanted to respond to your comment about the 20% reduction. I think there's a lot we've got to work through in the police committee. We're just kind of, there's so many things that we have to consider that have to be considered. about force reduction and what's possible, what isn't. Heather gave us a good overview earlier in the Finance Committee. I think there's a ton of stuff that we really just don't know yet. So the next week or so, next couple of weeks, things I think will fall into place. And I think we've got to understand a lot more than just say, wouldn't it be great to have 20%? That might not be realistic. Certainly something to, but I think we just need to learn more. And finally, John, thanks for bringing up the stuff about the Colarusso. I think that I understood in the planning board that they had withdrawn their proposal. Can somebody fill the blank? Pardon me?
I don't think they've withdrawn anything. There's just still, it's still in the process.
No, nothing's been withdrawn. It's still going forward. They're in the middle of the public hearing.
Is that why it wasn't addressed at the planning meeting last week?
Oh, on the last meeting, I believe Colarusso asked not to be on because they had promised to provide some additional information to the planning board. They didn't have it ready in time.
Oh, okay.
So they wanted to get that submitted and then it's on for, I believe, in July.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand this distinction. Okay, thanks.
The question of 10 or 20% of the police budget, there's a lot of work that has to be done to even get to 10%. But 20% would be a marvelous goal. I apologize to Rebecca. Sorry, did you have more you wanted to say? Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Sorry. It's very hard to manage everybody at once. Sorry. Let's see. Anybody have their hand up? Anybody? Tiffany? Tiffany wants to speak again. Tiffany.
Yes, Tiffany would like to speak again. I would like to invite everyone on the council and everyone on the public that is listening and everyone that supports the cause, the movement, Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, Say Her Name, June 27th, 2 p.m. in Townsend Park in Albany. There will be a rally. Please join us, support the cause, support the movement, support us. Thank you.
Anything else from any council member or the public at this point? If you're a member of the public, there's a way to raise your hand in the participants column on the right. You have that up. I don't see anybody. Verity would like to speak. Verity.
Hi, so I'm just still slightly unclear as to what decision you guys made, because I thought, Tom, you said you were going to ask Colarusso from the council's behalf to possibly speak before you, or not planning board, sorry, I mean planning board, not Colarusso. And then John said, well, that should be voted on, and then you didn't take a vote. So now
I didn't make a motion to do it, so there's no motion, there's no vote.
Yeah. So basically the council is not asking the planning board to come and present.
Not at this moment.
Okay.
And this, Eileen, I think that's great for us not to rush into it, because this thing has been going on how long? Is it 15 years? And I just think for us to get involved as a council, I would like to have a much deeper understanding. I know some of the high peaks of what has gone on over the years, but
in 2011, the new zoning was established.
Yeah.
Colarusso didn't buy property until later.
2014.
Well, my question, I'm not trying to weigh in on the merits or demerits of the proposal at all. I'm just trying to figure out what you guys' steps are. I appreciate clarification.
Right. And my point is, as a council, and me as a council member, I'm sure others have a much fuller set of facts at their command about all of this. But I think before we get involved and ask the planning people to come in, we should know that we have something valuable to offer to the process, not just be another sidestep.
I agree, and I appreciate the depth of knowledge that Alderman Rosenthal has on this issue, actually. So I appreciated
And
his clarification.
I just like to add too, and to add on and positively to what Supervisor Mussman said. I mean, this is a big environmental, social justice issue. Certainly the truck traffic period in Hudson, but to separate the delicate issue too, heavier and cause a lot of distress. The economic development of the waterfront and Colaruso's impact on that it will be very great. And it's not to bash the company; they're a really good company. They have a great track record of what they do. But the long-term effects of their presence here will greatly affect our economic development as a city as a whole. So not just one section. So there is a lot of balance that we have to weigh here going forward. And we do have a voice, and we do have some authority on our own that we could do an exercise to try to make this come to an outcome that benefits everybody. But certainly I hear Supervisor Mussman's concerns, and I echo them because it comes right through their traffic comes right through my ward, but as do other 18-wheelers and things that have been a real plague in this community for a very long period of time, especially people who don't have the more marginal members of our community are really bearing the brunt of truck traffic overall.
Rebecca, did you want to say something?
Just that, as far as I understand it, what's also before the planning board is that because of a recent lawsuit that found in the favor of the city in Colaruso's having performed some work at the waterfront, that what actually is really at issue is whether Colaruso can be granted a permit to continue their
That's not, I mean, we should leave those things aside and just focus clearly on the truck traffic here. They've been
but I guess I just want to make the point that if they were to be denied that permit, then the truck traffic would end.
That's not necessarily true because they've been continually operating at the waterfront throughout this whole process. So we can't just shut them down and then think they're going to go away because they have a right to operate here. So
John is right. It is not as simple as a thing of being able to turn down a permit, especially the way the law is written and the nature of the application. What would happen afterwards is somehow they'd allow it to continue to be operating to a degree, and it would be, it's hard to predict what would happen. It would just be a litigation mess.
Well,
but it's not a simple situation of that it can be simply denied. When the
but it can also
can't be denied.
Can I talk?
If it's been submitted in accordance with the law, that's the problem.
Can I just say that also before the planning board, though, is whether to call for a full environmental and seeker review, and
there's a question of whether they have the right to the ability to do that either. And again, what purpose does that do? Because it doesn't change any of the analysis that's been done. And that's where part of the issue.
Or does it? I mean,
no, it doesn't, because it was already decided 9 years ago to rezone the area and change it from industrial to allow this to happen.
I'm sorry, Jeff. In all due respect, Rebecca, we should just keep this to the focus of what we can do legislatively, which is address traffic issues, and let the planning board handle what they are set out to do, which is deep, and they've been engaged in it for a long period of time. So I would say we shouldn't weigh in too much on that particular part of the argument and just leave it with our focus on traffic.
Can I speak a little bit about that truck?
Sure, go ahead.
Truck?
Go ahead.
Well, the thing is nothing against nobody. If we do the traffic study, how many trucks from Colaruso every day is running and how many times? And other trucks for like a Walmart, ShopRite, Lowe's, those big trucks, how many times in a weekly basis they are running, and what is the weight limit? If we do the study, Colaruso is running more than any other truck every day. So if we can help Colaruso and help the residents to give them an extra path to make their trucks out of the city to do their own thing, it's really big help for the city.
Fair enough, Shirsha, but there's a delicate balance here because the outcome of this thing in the long run for a private company is pretty considerable. So I'm not, we got to balance a lot of issues here, the social justice, environmental justice issues, and then the issues
Around those truck routes, if you can look those houses inside, you see the crack. How many water crack every day is getting from when they use their hydraulic brake?
I completely agree with you, but we could push for a study of something, which is one thing, a truck traffic study, and then we could try to separate these issues and deal with them appropriately, because we have to, there's a lot, this is not, again, there's a lot to be gained by one private company that they're a good company in their own right and how they operate, but they have a lot to gain here through through how we act toward a settlement here. And if we get in the way of the planning board the wrong way, that could be pretty bad too for the city. So
I mean, if we have to do the traffic study about the trucks, and I believe we all are elected officials, I believe we need to do something about that and help residents, whoever own the houses or live in the houses. I think they need help from us to give them a safe street and pedestrian also, and the owner of the houses and residents.
I agree. And again, there's questions about there's all types of arguments that can be made about that particular type of truck traffic, the gravel traffic alone in terms of.
And another thing is to make a decision for the whole road. I don't know how long it takes to make a decision from the planning board. Nothing against nobody. I believe somebody can think about a little more and make a decision it should not take that long to find a solution of a problem.
Let me just say something here. Just this is a big picture comment. That mine has a lot more life in it. They call it the life of the mine. It's part of their permit process. It will be operating there for a long, long time beyond our lifetimes. There's over 100 years of mining left there. And that's a big economic impact overall in the area, plus in our community in terms of getting that product to port via our roads. So as much as I want to solve this problem and get those heavy gravel trucks off of the streets that go through my ward, we have to be careful about how we do it.
Well, we all need to come closer to solve the problem, include Colarusso, us, and everybody needs to come closer to solve the problem. Is when those street was built, the truck was not a 56 feeder or 20 tons. Now those big truck coming a 56 feet, and those street got a lot of sinkhole.
Agreed. I mean, I suppose
those streets cannot take that big weight limit.
The burden
was not built for 20 tons.
The burden is great. I'm just trying to say, as much as we're weighing all these outcome here, you have to think about every other.
How many pipes are broken underground around the city of Hudson because of those heavyweight trucks?
Good question. This is something we could talk
and
to
DPW
about.
have to fix those things.
Well, this is something we should be doing fact finding and going and getting at DPW about these questions. But believe me, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, anyone else before we wrap this up? Public or council? In that case, I will ask for a motion.
I have one more thing.
Who's that?
The bottom line is the route that is proposed, no one lives on. Presently, these trucks are going past Providence Hall, Bliss Towers, all the Front Street projects. Those are all people who live in subsidized housing.
Yeah, I
They're
agree.
the ones that are bearing the largest burden, and that is the reality of this situation. While we wait around and debate and imagine all of the future, whatever, John, I respect all the things you're citing, and I've listened to it for 9+ years. The reality is the poorest people of Hudson are putting up with the dirt, the hazard truck traffic, and the danger of these trucks driving through our community. And I think you need to think about that really hard.
I do. And Linda, I want to say that part of my thinking about a weight limit law would be to get those trucks immediately out of the third ward that go right by Bliss Towers and Providence Hall and get them on the hall, get them on what they have and have them operate upon what they have while we're going forward. That's what I want to explore.
They'll go down Columbia, they go down Green. There's no way just killing part of the street. You're not gonna.
Agreed.
It doesn't solve it, because the busiest intersection is Third and Columbia, where everybody walks to the store, they live there, they buy food, they travel there on foot. And that is not gonna solve the problem. Sorry.
I agree. We have to do something fast. I mean, I've been listening to everybody. I think it was Alderman Holloran who said this has been going on for 15 years. You know, we have the opportunity to do something now. Let's do something about it. I've been to people's houses outside of the second ward, and they showed me the cracks in their wall. I've been in their homes where you can see literally the picture frames shaking and some of them falling off the walls. And I don't want to wait until someone's home actually comes crumbling down.
But this gets right to my point, Alderman Garriga, that a weight limit law, if it's applicable, will immediately solve that problem in the second ward by getting their trucks off the street onto what they have legal already. They already have the right. They already have the ability to operate operate on their private road via ingress egress. So the point is trying to use some of our political, our legal power, if we can, to try to solve part of the problem right away without interfering with the planning board, if it's possible. And then to Alderman Musman's point, because Supervisor Musman's point, because I totally support what she's saying. I just feel that the bigger issue too will remain in terms of the truck traffic in general, beyond what we're trying to do with the gravel trucks, because they have to go. I'm completely with her, and she's right. That route is wholly isolated. No one lives by it.
Well, my next question would be to our city attorney, with hearing all of the concerns and the issues from all of us this evening. Would you be able to put something together that will help us out with these issues?
You always ask the simple questions, Tiffany. The short answer is I can give you a memo outlining the issues that you have. What John is outlining in terms of the broader problems of truck traffic is not a simple solution, and does not necessarily happen quicker, and we require some investment by the city to do a broader study on issues of damage to the infrastructure. But I can try and give you something that, because I think as John put up, or I think Eileen mentioned, is, many of you aren't up to speed on the issues or the history that has happened here. And I think you've got legitimate concerns and questions. You need to have an understanding of where everything sits legally, where the process is, and what your options are as the legislative body to create different rules or laws that may address this problem or other problems that are covered by this. But believe me, there is no shortcut or a silver bullet that solves the problem any quicker than the planning board moving forward with an application that's got them pretty much all the information they need and solves a lot of, certainly the problems associated with Colarusso. The broader truck issue problems, you want to look at of creating weight limits separate from the truck routes or altering the truck routes. That's a different problem, bigger problem.
Well, thank you. And I guess how long you think that'll take before you can put that together for us?
Oh, I certainly don't have anything else to do, but I'll try and get it up, in the next couple of weeks anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I will enter. Is that you raise your hand, Tiffany, or just?
I was just giving the Black Lives Matter fist. Thank you. I would love to hear everyone on the council the same way we support other different cultures and get together and repeat at the same time. I would love to hear the council say Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, everyone. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives
Always
Matter.
good. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, that's a perfect closing. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion, Shershah.
Oh, everybody wants it. I'll take Calvin. Who's second? Shersha. Oh,
Shershah.
okay, Shersha. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Night.
Okay, the motion carries. Good night, all. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.